I had $15 million in my purse. $15 million. The winning lottery ticket was tucked inside my wallet, right next to a photo of my husband and our son at the beach last summer, back when I still thought we were happy. I was shaking so hard I could barely drive. But all I could think about was Mark's face when I told him. How his eyes would light up. How he'd pick me up and spin me around like he used to, back when he still looked at me like I mattered. I thought this was it. This was the miracle that would save us, that would bring back the man I married, that would prove I wasn't just the invisible woman who picked up his dry cleaning and remembered his mother's birthday. I practically ran through the lobby of his office building, my heart hammering so loud I could hear it in my ears. The receptionist wasn't at her desk, and Mark's office door was cracked open just enough. I was about to burst in, about to scream the good news, when I heard her voice, Chloe, his assistant. And then I heard him, my husband, the father of my child, saying words that turned my blood to ice. She's let herself go, honestly. I'm ashamed to bring her to company events anymore. She's not the woman I married. She's just... God, she's become so pathetic. My hand froze on the door handle. Don't worry, babe, he continued, his voice dropping to that intimate tone he used to save for me. After this promotion goes through, I'll file for divorce. My lawyer's already working on it. She won't get a dime. I'll make sure she walks away with nothing but the debt. I stood there in that hallway, $15 million burning a hole in my purse, and something inside me died. But something else, something cold and sharp and furious, something else was born. I backed away from that door as quietly as I'd approached it, and right then, in that fluorescent-lit corporate hallway that smelled like stale coffee and broken promises, I made a decision. The old Sarah, the one who bent and sacrificed and blamed herself for everything, she was gone, and the woman who walked out of that building, she was ready for war. I used to be someone, and before all of this, before Mark, before Leo, before I became invisible, I had this corner office at a law firm downtown, the kind with floor-to-ceiling windows where you could see the whole city spread out beneath you like it was yours for the taking. I was on partner track, 29 years old and hungry for it. But then Mark got his big break at the tech startup, and someone had to stay home when Leo came, and, well, I guess I thought love meant sacrifice. I thought it meant being the one who bends. The thing is, I didn't mind it at first. Watching Leo take his first steps, reading him bedtime stories, making our house feel like a home. It felt important, Mark would come home late, exhausted from 70-hour weeks, and I'd have dinner waiting. I'd rub his shoulders while he complained about his boss, about the pressure, about how he was carrying the whole damn company on his back, and I believed him. God, I believed every word. I told myself we were a team, that his success was our success, that the sacrifices I made were investments in our future together. But somewhere along the way, I don't know when exactly, something shifted. Mark started working even later. Started canceling date nights, missing Leo's soccer games, looking right through me at the dinner table like I was part of the furniture. I tried everything. New haircut, lost weight, bought lingerie that made me feel ridiculous and desperate. Nothing worked, and the worst part, I blamed myself. I'd look in the mirror and think maybe I'd let myself go. Maybe I wasn't interesting anymore. Maybe I'd become exactly what he always feared. Just another suburban mom who'd forgotten how to be a woman. I had no idea that while I was drowning in self-doubt, he was already planning my execution. The lottery ticket wasn't even supposed to be mine. I mean, I'm not the kind of person who plays the lottery. I never was. But 3 days before everything fell apart, I was standing in line at the gas station, Leo tugging at my sleeve asking for candy, and I overheard this old woman behind me saying how the jackpot had rolled over to 15 million. 15 million. I remember thinking, God, what would I even do with that kind of money? And then, like a punch to the gut, My next thought was, maybe Mark would look at me again. Maybe if I wasn't struggling to stretch every dollar. If I could get my hair done at that salon his co-workers' wives go to. If I could lose this weight without counting every calorie because I could afford a gym membership. Maybe he'd see me again. So I bought it. $5 that should have gone toward Leo's school supplies. I felt ridiculous doing it, like some desperate housewife in a bad movie. But I tucked that ticket into my wallet and... I don't know. I guess I let myself hope. 2 nights later, I was sitting alone in our bedroom. Mark was working late, again, shocker, and I pulled up the numbers on my phone just to feel something, even if it was disappointment. I checked the first number. Match. Okay, cool. Maybe I'd win $5. Second number. Match. My heart started doing this weird flutter thing. Third number. Fourth. Fifth. And then the Powerball. Every single number matched. I must have checked that ticket against the website 20 times. My hands were shaking so bad I dropped my phone twice. $15 million. After taxes, still more than $8 million. Enough to pay off the credit cards I'd been secretly juggling. Enough to fix the roof, replace our dying car, send Leo to any college he wanted. But you know what my first thought was? It wasn't freedom. It wasn't security. It was, Mark will be so proud of me. How messed up is that? I actually thought winning the lottery would make my husband love me again. So I grabbed my keys, didn't even change out of my sweatpants, and drove to his office to tell him we'd just become millionaires. I never imagined that the best thing that ever happened to me would lead me straight to the worst moment of my life. The elevator ride up to the 7th floor felt like it took forever. I was rehearsing what I'd say in my head, picturing his face, imagining him laughing with relief because God knows we'd been drowning in bills for months. The credit card statements I'd been hiding in my nightstand drawer, the second mortgage he didn't know I'd been considering, all of it would just disappear. We could start over. We could be us again. When the doors opened, the reception area was empty. Mark's assistant's desk, Chloe's desk, had her purse on it, her computer still glowing, but she wasn't there. And Mark's office door, the one with his name etched in gold letters that I'd been so proud of 3 years ago, it was open just a crack. I could hear voices. His voice, low and intimate, the way he used to talk to me when we were alone. And then her laugh, Chloe's laugh, high and bright and young in a way that made something twist in my stomach. I should have knocked. I should have announced myself, but something stopped me. Maybe it was the tone in his voice, or maybe some part of me already knew. I moved closer, my hand reaching for the door handle, and that's when I heard him say it. Honestly, Chloe, she's let herself go. I'm embarrassed to bring her anywhere. The company Christmas party last year? God, she wore this dress that was 2 sizes too small, and I wanted to disappear. She's not the woman I married anymore. She's become pathetic. My hand froze on that handle. My whole body froze, and Chloe laughed, like it was funny, like my pain was entertainment. So when are you going to leave her? She asked, and I could hear her moving closer to him, could imagine exactly what was happening on the other side of that door. Mark's voice dropped even lower, more conspiratorial. After the promotion, my lawyer's already drawing up the papers. She signed that post-nup 2 years ago when I convinced her we needed protection for the business. She has no idea what she agreed to. She'll walk away with nothing. Not the house, not my 401k, nothing. Hell, I've been moving our debt into accounts with her name on them for months. By the time this is over, she'll be lucky if she doesn't owe me money. They both laughed. They actually laughed. And something inside my chest, something that had been barely holding on, it just shattered into a million pieces. But I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I backed away from that door one silent step at a time, and I walked out of that building with $15 million in my purse and ice water in my veins. I don't remember getting back to my car. I don't remember starting the engine or pulling out of that parking garage. One minute I was standing in that hallway, and the next I was sitting in the grocery store parking lot 3 blocks away, staring at my hands on the steering wheel like they belonged to someone else. My phone buzzed. A text from Mark. "Working late again. Don't wait up." I stared at those words until they blurred. Working late. How many times had I read that exact message? How many dinners had I eaten alone? How many nights had I lain awake wondering what I'd done wrong? How I could be better? How I could make him love me again? And the whole damn time, he was planning this. The lottery ticket was still in my purse. $15 million. Enough money to change everything. Except it couldn't change the fact that my husband thought I was pathetic. It couldn't erase the sound of him laughing with her about how embarrassing I was. I picked up Leo from my mom's house in a daze. She asked if I was feeling okay, said I looked pale, and I just smiled and said I was tired. Leo climbed into his car seat, chattering about the dinosaur book Grandma had read to him, and I looked at him in the rearview mirror. His dark curly hair like Mark's, his smile all mine, and something clicked into place. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about what kind of woman I wanted my son to see his mother become. I could cash that ticket tomorrow. I could walk into Mark's office and throw it in his face, watch him realize what he'd almost had, what he'd thrown away. But that would be too easy. That would be emotional, messy, the kind of thing the pathetic old Sarah would do. No. If Mark wanted to play games, if he wanted to destroy me quietly and methodically with lawyers and postnups and debt in my name, then I'd beat him at his own game. I drove home that night and made dinner like always. I set the table for 2, even though Mark wouldn't be there. And while Leo ate his chicken nuggets and told me about his day, I started planning. The old Sarah died in that hallway outside Mark's office. The woman who walked out, she was done being invisible. She was done being ashamed. And she was about to become Mark's worst nightmare. The next morning, I woke up at 5 a.m. with perfect clarity. Mark's side of the bed was cold. He'd come home sometime after midnight and hadn't even bothered to kiss me goodnight. I lay there in the dark, listening to him snore, and I felt nothing. No hurt, no anger, just this cold, steady focus. I had a winning lottery ticket worth $15 million, and he had no idea. That was my advantage. That was my weapon. But I couldn't just cash it and run, because Mark was right about one thing. That post-nup I'd signed 2 years ago, the one he'd convinced me was just standard business protection. I'd been so trusting, so stupid. I'd signed it without even reading it carefully, because he was my husband, and I believed him when he said it was for us. I waited until Mark left for work, until Leo was safely at preschool, and then I pulled out my laptop. I hadn't touched my law school contacts in years, hadn't even thought about that part of my life since I'd walked away from my career. But Professor Mitchell, she'd been my mentor, the one who told me I had what it took to make senior partner someday. I found her email and I typed, "I need the name of the most ruthless divorce attorney in the city. Someone who doesn't lose, please." My finger hovered over the send button for a full minute, because once I sent this, once I started down this path, there was no going back. The marriage was over. The fantasy that we could somehow fix this, it would be dead and buried. I hit send. Professor Mitchell responded within an hour with a name, Catherine Chen. "She's a shark," the email read. "Expensive as hell, but worth every penny. Tell her I sent you." I used my secret emergency fund, the one I'd been building from grocery money and birthday checks from my parents, the one Mark didn't know existed, to pay for the consultation. $2,000 for 2 hours of her time. When I sat across from Catherine in her sleek downtown office, she looked at me with these sharp, calculating eyes and said, "Tell me everything, and I mean everything." So I did. I told her about the $15 million, about what I'd overheard, about the post-nup, about the debt Mark had been quietly moving into my name. And when I finished, Catherine leaned back in her chair and smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of a predator who'd just spotted prey. "Sarah," she said, "by the time we're done with him, he's going to wish he'd never heard your name." Catherine's first instruction was the hardest thing I'd ever had to do. Go home and act normal. Be the perfect wife. Don't let him suspect a single thing. So that's exactly what I did. I went home that afternoon, and I cooked Mark's favorite meal, pot roast with those little roasted potatoes he loves. When he walked through the door at 9 p.m., smelling like Chloe's perfume, I smiled. I actually smiled. "Hey, honey, rough day?" I asked, and I watched him lie right to my face. "You have no idea, babe. The pressure at work is insane right now." I rubbed his shoulders. I poured him wine. I laughed at his stories about his incompetent coworkers, and the whole time, I was thinking about Catherine's words. Every interaction is evidence. Every text, every credit card statement, every lie. We're building a case. Mark started staying out even later. Some nights he didn't come home at all, texting me vague excuses about crashing at Dave's after drinks. I'd text back with understanding emojis, telling him to rest well, that Leo and I missed him. Meanwhile, Catherine had hired a private investigator. His name was James, and he was this quiet, methodical guy who looked like someone's accountant but could follow a target for 16 hours without being noticed. He started tailing Mark, documenting everything. The hotels, the restaurants, the jewelry purchases that never made it home to me. Every Wednesday at noon, James would send me an encrypted report, and I'd read it in my parked car outside Leo's preschool, my hands shaking with rage I couldn't show to anyone. But the worst part wasn't the affair. I mean, yeah, it hurt like hell knowing my husband was sleeping with someone else. But I'd already mourned that marriage in my head. No. The worst part was what James found in Mark's financial records. He wasn't just planning to leave me with nothing. He'd been systematically destroying me for months. Credit cards in my name that I'd never opened. Maxed out. A home equity line of credit he'd taken against our house, forging my signature. He'd even opened a business account under my social security number and was funneling company funds through it, setting me up to take the fall for embezzlement if anyone ever audited the books. Catherine looked at those documents and said, "This isn't just divorce fraud. This is criminal." And that's when I knew. Mark wasn't just leaving me. He was trying to bury me. But what he didn't know was that I'd already dug his grave. 3 weeks into my double life, James called me with the breakthrough we'd been waiting for. "I've got everything," he said, his voice crackling through my car speakers. Bank transfers, hotel receipts, text messages between Mark and Chloe discussing the embezzlement scheme. "Sarah, this is airtight." I pulled over on the side of the road because my hands were shaking too hard to drive. Catherine had warned me this moment would come, when the evidence became so overwhelming that we'd have to decide, do we go for the jugular or do we play it safe? But there was never really a choice. Was there? Mark had declared war on me months ago. I was just finally fighting back. Catherine's plan was beautiful in its simplicity. We weren't going to file for divorce quietly. We weren't going to settle out of court. No, we were going to wait for the perfect moment, the moment when Mark felt most invincible, most secure in his victory. And that moment was coming fast. Mark had been dropping hints for weeks about big news at work, about how his promotion to VP was practically guaranteed. He'd started planning this huge celebration party at our house. Well, his house, since he thought it would be his soon enough. He wanted to invite all the executives, show off, make his big power play. And Chloe? Oh, she'd be there too. As his assistant, of course. The arrogance of it made me want to scream. But I didn't scream. I smiled and told him I'd be happy to host. I ordered catering, arranged for a bartender, bought a new dress, a beautiful one, tailored perfectly, because I wasn't going to let him see me as pathetic ever again. Catherine and I coordinated everything down to the minute. The divorce papers, the fraud evidence, the witnesses we'd need. "We're going to serve him in front of everyone," Catherine said, and I could hear the satisfaction in her voice. His bosses, his colleagues, his mistress were going to destroy his reputation the same way he tried to destroy yours. I sat in my kitchen that night after Leo went to bed, the lottery ticket still hidden in my purse upstairs, and I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Power. For the first time since this nightmare started, I wasn't the victim. I was the one holding all the cards. And Mark had no idea the storm that was about to hit him. The night of the party, I stood in front of my bedroom mirror and barely recognized myself. The woman staring back at me wasn't the frumpy, invisible housewife Mark had been describing to his mistress. She was sharp, polished, dangerous. I'd gotten my hair done that morning, my nails manicured, and the navy blue dress I wore fit like it was made for me, because it was. I'd spent some of my emergency fund on it, and it was worth every penny. When I walked downstairs, Mark was in the living room adjusting his tie, and for just a second, just one fleeting second, I saw something flicker across his face. Surprise, maybe? Or was it regret? But then it was gone, replaced by that fake smile he'd been giving me for months. "You look nice," he said, like he was commenting on the weather. The guests started arriving at 7. Mark's boss, Richard, the CFO, Patricia, a dozen other executives and their perfectly coiffed wives who'd always made me feel like I didn't belong. And then, Chloe. She walked in wearing this red dress that screamed, "Look at me." And I watched Mark's eyes light up in a way they hadn't for me in years. She played her part perfectly, the demure assistant, shaking hands and making small talk. But I saw the way she touched his arm, the secret glances they exchanged when they thought no one was watching. I played hostess, refilling drinks, laughing at terrible jokes, making sure everyone felt welcome in what they all assumed was Mark's home. None of them knew that legally, this house was still half mine. None of them knew about the post-nup, or Mark's plans, or the fact that their golden boy was a fraud. At 8:30, Mark clinked his glass to get everyone's attention. The room fell silent, all eyes on him as he stood in the center of our living room looking so proud, so untouchable. "I just want to thank you all for being here tonight," he began, his voice smooth and confident. "As most of you know, I've been working toward the VP position for 3 years now, and Richard, I'm grateful for this opportunity to prove myself." Richard nodded, smiling, completely oblivious. Mark continued, building toward his big moment, soaking in the attention. And that's when I saw Catherine slip in through the front door, followed by 2 men in suits I didn't recognize. Our eyes met across the room. She gave me the smallest nod. It was time. I set down my wine glass, my heart pounding so hard I thought everyone could hear it, and I stepped forward. "Mark," I said, my voice cutting through his speech, "before you go on, I have an announcement too." The room went completely silent. Mark turned to look at me, and I could see the irritation flash across his face before he covered it with that patronizing smile. "Sarah, honey, can this wait? I'm kind of in the middle of something here." Honey. He called me honey in that condescending tone he'd perfected, the one that made me feel small, but I wasn't small anymore. I smiled back at him, and I watched his expression shift slightly. Like he was seeing something in my eyes he'd never seen before. "No, Mark, it really can't wait." I turned to face the room, to face all these people who'd watched me fade into the background for years. You see, while my husband has been working so hard on his career, I've been doing some work of my own. Catherine stepped forward, flanked by the 2 men in suits. One of them I recognized now. He was a partner at Mark's firm, but from the legal department. The other was clearly a police detective, his badge visible on his belt. Mark's face went white. "What? What is this?" he stammered. And oh God, the fear in his voice was like music. Catherine opened her briefcase, pulled out a thick manila folder, and her voice rang out clear and professional. "Mark Sullivan, I'm Catherine Chen, representing your wife Sarah in divorce proceedings." But more importantly, she handed a document to the detective. "These gentlemen are here regarding multiple counts of fraud, embezzlement, and identity theft." You could have heard a pin drop. Chloe took a step back from Mark like he was radioactive. Richard's face turned purple. And Mark just stood there, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "This is insane," he finally managed. "Sarah, what are you doing? Have you lost your mind?" But I wasn't done. Not even close. I walked over to the dining room table where I'd hidden a second folder, my hands steady as I opened it. "Let me tell you what I've been doing, Mark. While you were planning to leave me destitute, while you were moving debt into my name and forging my signature on documents, while you were embezzling from your own company and framing me for it, I was collecting evidence." I pulled out the bank statements, the hotel receipts, the text messages James had recovered. Every transaction, every lie, every single time you told me you were working late when you were actually with her. I pointed at Chloe, who looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. Richard stepped forward, his face a mask of controlled fury. "Mark, please tell me this isn't true." But Mark wasn't looking at Richard. He was staring at me like he'd never seen me before, like I was some stranger who'd invaded his perfect life. You've been spying on me. You hired investigators. Sarah, that's a violation of my privacy." The audacity of it almost made me laugh. "Almost. Your privacy," I said, my voice cold and steady. "You mean like how you violated our marriage vows? Like how you violated my identity to open fraudulent accounts? Like how you've been stealing from your company and using my social security number to cover your tracks?" The detective stepped forward, pulling out handcuffs. And that's when Mark started to panic. Really panic. Wait, this is a misunderstanding. Sarah, baby, please, we can talk about this. Richard, I can explain everything." But Catherine was already handing documents to Richard and Patricia, showing them the paper trail of Mark's embezzlement. $50,000, siphoned off over 6 months through fake vendor accounts that led straight to Chloe's bank account. Patricia's face went from shock to disgust as she turned to look at Chloe. "You were in on this?" Chloe shook her head frantically, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't know. Mark said it was bonus money. I swear I didn't know it was stolen." But nobody believed her. Why would they? "Mark Sullivan," Richard's voice boomed through the room. "You're terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort you from the premises, from this house, to collect your personal items tomorrow. We'll be pressing full criminal charges." The detective moved in, reading Mark his rights as he cuffed him. And Mark lost it completely. He started screaming, thrashing against the handcuffs. "This is insane! Sarah, you're ruining everything. You're nothing without me. Do you hear me? Nothing. You'll be homeless. You'll be broke. You can't afford this house. You can't afford anything." The guests were backing away, some of them filming on their phones, others just staring in horror. And I just stood there, watching the man I'd loved for 8 years, the father of my child, reveal exactly who he really was. Then I reached into my purse, pulled out a single piece of paper, and held it up. "Actually, Mark, about that." The room fell silent again as everyone stared at the paper in my hand. Mark's eyes narrowed, confusion cutting through his rage. "What is that?" he spat. I smiled, really smiled, for the first time in months. "Remember 3 weeks ago when you were working late, and I texted you that I'd bought a lottery ticket at the gas station? You texted back, 'Cool,' with a thumbs up emoji. I watched the memory flicker across his face, watched him realize he'd completely forgotten about it because I was so insignificant to him. Well, Mark, I won. $15 million. I claimed it 2 weeks ago, and thanks to Catherine's excellent legal work, it's entirely separate property. You won't see a single cent of it. The look on his face. God, I wish I could have frozen that moment forever. Pure, absolute devastation. His mouth fell open. His knees actually buckled, and the detective had to hold him up. No, he whispered. No, that's not possible. But it was possible. It was real. And while he'd been planning my destruction, while he'd been laughing with Chloe about how pathetic I was, I'd been building an empire he'd never touch. You're done, Mark, I said quietly. You'll be paying back the company, paying your legal fees, and if you're very, very lucky, you might avoid prison time. But you'll do all of that alone and broke. Have a nice life. They escorted him out of our house in handcuffs, past all his colleagues, past his mistress who was being questioned by corporate security, past the life he'd built on lies and cruelty. I stood at the door and watched the police car drive away, and I felt free, truly free for the first time in years. That was 6 months ago. I used some of the lottery money to buy a beautiful house by the lake, just me and Leo. I started my own consulting firm, helping other women navigate complex divorces. Mark took a plea deal, 3 years probation and full restitution. He lives in a studio apartment now and sees Leo every other weekend, supervised. Chloe lost her job and left town. And me? I wake up every morning, look at myself in the mirror, and I see someone I'm proud of. Someone who fought back. Someone who won. But if you think a husband's betrayal is shocking, wait until you hear what a daughter tried to do to her own father to steal his inheritance. Click on the story that appears on your screen to find out what happened when a daughter's greed destroyed a family. It'll make your blood run cold.